if you go back to the displacement, if you look at those zones, they're high minority areas. And that is the point of, in East Portland, Cully, in the east side of Portland, out to the other areas. If you looked at a map of minorities in Portland and overlaid it on here, I suspect the areas that were high red would also be very high populations of minorities that were high risk of displacement above the normal. So two slides ahead.
Yeah. So this map right here that we're looking at is a map of households of color.
So when you flip it to the displacement, that one back. But go for it. One more.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you look at that one and you look at the minorities, they overlay very well. And my issue is we are displacing minorities and they can't come back in because there is no, even though we're creating more housing through RIP, the housing is not affordable to them because of their income levels. And I don't know, you're talking about Hispanics, African Americans stuff. They're not at 80%. You look at their, the city just did a report in 2017 talking about African Americans having the lowest of income levels. And so how, when you displace them, how do they even come back? They can't come back. It is, you're asking me as an African American to approve displacing African Americans that can't come back. I get redlining. Redlining was I couldn't live in Portland in this section of town, and I could live across the tracks. Now I can't even live in Portland anymore. I just can't approve that. I can't, in all consciousness, say that people in the city of color are not going to be able to live in certain parts of the city and are going to be displaced, and they can't even come back to the city unless there's just not a market for them.
So, Andre, I take your point, but isn't the relevant question whether we're displacing those people at a lower rate than we are in the baseline scenario?
In those areas, no. You're not. You're accelerating the rate in those areas. And my concern is the induced population, because we're moving people that are in the indirect path. We're moving it out to where people have an opportunity today in a single-family home to either rent or own, and now of color, and now we're taking that opportunity away because
we're building the fourplex where they live.
We're building a fourplex where they live.
I want to poke at the numbers. Are we actually accelerating, or are we just decelerating less in those neighborhoods?
We're accelerating in the red areas, unless I missed the presentation.
I would like to see that overlay you're describing, where we see
accelerate in these red areas.
Yes.
Yes, this is the change now.
Yes.
There's also, of course, IH. So this isn't in a vacuum, this project.
It is, though, because IH is already paid for, in a sense. We've done a bond measure at 600,000, 300,000 in housing bonds. We've spent a lot of money already to try to create affordable housing in Portland. Now in these areas, this is up and above what I think at that time was projected to be. I don't know, but it seems like we're making the problem worse for some populations, and for other populations, it seems like it's a good deal. And I'm concerned about the unbalancing of that issue. I really worry that we're being asked to displace certain populations faster than others for the benefit of this greater good. And the greater good of more units is not benefiting everybody equally. And I don't know, I know the comp plan policies, and it's just not in there that we create policy to create unequal benefits to.
Correct.
And so I'm not sure how we balance it, but what's there today, moving these units out to East Portland, is to me, not the answer. I mean, in terms of saying what Tyler talked about, saying, well, this glass is full, so it has to flow, and it flows to East Portland with fourplexes and triplexes and whatever, is not an answer, because it affects people that are at the most vulnerable level.
I know what you're saying, and I think that if the city doesn't put in place robust mitigation, then history will repeat itself. The same thing will happen in East Portland that happened, perhaps a little slower, but that happened in inner Northeast. And so I think that's not something that I think this group we can't put in place. We don't have funding authority. But I mean, I'm going to really be pushing for us to take a very strong stand on that. And, I just want to hear more about what you had in mind. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm asking for a new plan for East Portland, because it really needs to look at equity and get ahead of something like RIP, so that people that want to redevelop their place don't have to sell it to do that, and also look at all those different levels of people and different situations that they're in. They're all different, and provide a way to keep them in the neighborhood.